Listen up! Listen up! Give it to me.
If you're out there and you're in that trying to make a living and carve out your space in the musician world, it's awareness, acceptance, demand for your brand.
You're listening to the Career Musician Podcast. And now for your host, music director of the stars, Nomad.
Oh, no, really, you're too kind. Please, I insist. Stop clapping. All right, let's get to it. Welcome to another episode of The Career Musician with yours truly, Nomad. Today we have Josh Pegram, branding mastermind and dot connector. Buckle in as we're talking about dilution by over-distribution, the three main elements of branding 101, awareness, acceptance, demand. And this is all coming from someone who has worked extensively with iconic figures and brands such as Randy Jackson and Geico, the band Perry, Garth Brooks, Taylor Swift, Tommy Sims, and a host of others. Josh is the Main Dot Connector. Okay, Nomad here with Josh Pegram. Josh, just from the little bit that I've known him, and it's literally, a handful of hours?
Yes, here we're sitting in the studio, getting to know each other.
You strike me as a genius type. I don't use that word lightly, and what I mean by that is you're very aware. You're aware of everything that's going on, and you can see layers. You don't just look at people and take face value. I see you seeing through the layers. And anyway, what would you call yourself? How can I introduce you?
Oh man, it's very kind what you just said, man. That's very nice. Like I told you earlier in the studio, there's so many beautiful titles and all that. I connect the dots for folks, like we were talking earlier. I just like to see around the corner a bit if I can for folks and connect passionate people with other passionate people that don't do the same thing but complement each other. So I don't know. I've been doing it since I was a kid.
That's a knack.
I guess, yeah.
It's innately born in you.
Yeah, I just loved always introducing people and being, yeah.
So I met you under the auspice of Tommy Sims' manager today.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
there's worse titles to be called. And
that's incredible.
Yeah, Tommy's a sweetheart. We're getting Tommy back out into the space. And literally, this is one of his first kind of saying, we're going to do this. We're going to do it. So we got this call 24 hours ago. But
incredible. So last night I'm in my studio working on some music, and I got a text from Tommy. Brother Nomad, I'm coming to your fair city. I love Tommy's, his way with words is beautiful.
Yes.
He says, man, would you be available, blah, blah, blah. I said, absolutely. I jumped on the phone. I'm like, dude, Tommy, yes.
Yeah.
If I see his name, I'm like clamoring.
Sweetheart, yeah.
So he says, we're here at Sunset Sound Studios, historic.
Yes.
50 years and running here in
Yes.
Hollywood. And then we jump in today. We're doing a song for
The Voice,
The Voice, which is airing Monday.
Monday, and
Right.
or do we have to have it mastered by Monday? It goes to iTunes?
Yeah, I think tomorrow, Tommy said you have to have it mixed and mastered.
Yeah. So you guys have been killing it in there, and everything's done. And so, yeah, we're out here. We got it all pulled together, and that's the beautiful thing about, as I said, sitting around the campfire. We don't do it anymore because of social media, and we don't connect.
Right.
And because, especially in the space you're in, send me a file. The downside to that for artists, business people, whoever, in these halls, just like you and I connected today, and we now have a relationship, you don't get that.
You don't.
And so we would have never had the chance to be, while we're waiting for the drummer to do his parts or whatever have you. We're sitting on the couch just going, what do you do? And then it gets deeper. And now we're having a real conversation about Nomad and the brand.
Wow.
I'm like, what? So that's that's what I love.
You cultivating the relationships,
Yes.
the rapport. Like you said, that doesn't happen anymore. I would guess, I've been on some TV sets, I've worked some TV dates and stuff. It's similar there because you're there all day.
Yes.
And it's a hurry up and wait thing.
Yes.
So you're hanging out, talking, but like you said, the music has missed that element because of technology advancements. We don't have to be in the same room at the same time.
No. It's done a lot of great things, but it's also, and I know it's overused, but it's pulled back so many integral parts of how commerce is done, and more importantly, the support of the human element. Because, just in music, this is entertainment is a tough business.
Right.
Business is a tough business, especially if you're running one by yourself or you got a few folks around you. And you've been doing this for how long? How many years did we say? Yeah, a lot of time. You're a professional.
Right.
Literally a professional.
Career musician.
Yeah, career musician.
Yeah.
And people, and this is how we started talking. And, from guys like Bob Doyle, who manages Garth that I worked with, and what we discussed earlier to guys like Tommy Sims. Everyone, if you're not out there creating awareness, acceptance to band, and I'll break that down more, you've got to be doing that daily. And social media is good for that, but we're diluted by it. And so I'm throwing too many corny cliches, but they impacted me at some point. So dilution by distribution, and I got that from when I was in the cable industry, executive producing VOD. We used to say that. We were very careful, but I think that's what happens with social media. You get diluted.
Well, you may be able to tell by the background noise, we were in the studio, Sunset Sound Studios, responsible for Led Zeppelin, Van Halen, Prince records, you name it. Everybody who's anybody in rock and roll, hip hop, pop, any genre, any time period, anybody who's anybody has been there working. And what I really enjoyed about this session is that it was a great hang amongst friends. We had Tommy Sims, who was producing. He put it all together for Kyla Jade, the contestant on The Voice, and we recorded the song that Tommy wrote last year that she performed on the show. James Waddell was there from Nashville at the helm, the soundboard, Aaron Lindsay on keys, Kevin Randolph on keys, Victor Indrizio on drums, Tommy was playing bass, and myself on guitar, of course. And then there was this dude hanging out. And I'm like, yo, who is this dude? He's quiet. He's not really playing. He's just kind of tinkering around. Turns out it was the Main Dot Connector, Josh Pegram. He was there helping Tommy put this whole thing together. And let me tell you, what a great experience it turned out to be. Oh, and by the way, we were in Studio 1, which also happens to be the Purple Rain studio, because Prince was holed up there for many years making his masterpieces.
Blasting the stereotype of musicians. Follow us at the Career Musician Podcast.
How did the music bug bite you? And then what was your trajectory? And how did you arrive at this position you're at now?
Well, I was fortunate enough to still have an uncle that's in the music business to this day. And he was just always happy. So I said, I'm going that route. Started with a group in 1975, he did, called ZZ Top.
She's got legs!
Yeah, little group, ZZ Top, Billy Gibbons. I was doing sound check with Billy Gibbons when I was a kid. So at 10 years old, I'd be at front of house, and I'd just be like, I want to do this when I get older. So fast forward, I knew, because the industry was so hard to get into, but I knew I wanted to do it. Well, I took my corporate background. I was in the cable industry. I worked for Xfinity and Cox, a smaller company. So I said, how can I take my gifts and translate those into the music business? So I cold called. I went to Nashville, moved my wife and I, kept my day gig in the Xfinity cable world, and created the first ever Garth Brooks video on demand channel. And then that led to a Taylor Swift exclusive. Then that led to a Soul Train exclusive. So while I was doing that, Bob Doyle, who manages Garth and has since day one, got to watch me, and he took a chance on me and said, would you want to do business? And I to him, and we got to sign a group called the Band Perry. That's the very quick story, and it's, as you say, I was out there hustling every day, and still am.
Well, that's what caught my attention when we were talking earlier. You mentioned, man, it's a hustle. And I always say that. I always call it the New York Shuffle and the LA Hustle.
I like that.
Whatever.
I like that.
No matter where you're at, you
Yes.
got to be shucking and jiving, hustling your ass off.
Yeah.
You're listening to the Career Musician Podcast with your host, Nomad.
Okay, folks, this isn't the first time you heard me say it. The LA Hustle, the New York Shuffle, no matter how you want to slice it, Josh recognizes that. And guess what? All the other people I speak to in different industries, they say the same thing. It doesn't matter which lane you're driving in. The point is, if you're not moving, if you're not going forward, then you're stagnant. and you ain't doing nothing. That's the whole premise, once again, of the career musician, to remind everybody that, hey, this is a business, it's a career. It's not just a job. It's not just a gig. Sure, day to day, month to month, it's made up of a bunch of different jobs and gigs, but you gotta treat it like the career that it is. What I took away from this excerpt is that Josh said when he transitioned into music, he molded his music career after his career in the corporate executive world. Therefore, he's setting himself up for success, in my opinion, because again, this is not just music, it's not just creative, it's also an industry unto itself. And you can't enter into any industry without a game plan and without some daily consistency to get to your end game.
As a career musician, as an artist, as somebody who needs to brand themselves, you have a clear idea of what that looks like on paper.
Yeah, and this was shared and stuff I've picked up along the path by people before me. But it's broken down into this, and this really, I think, goes for artists, musicians, producers. If you're out there and you're in that trying to make a living and carve out your space in the musician world, it's awareness, acceptance, demand for your brand. So I'm going to say Nomad today.
Okay.
Josh Pegram. I've got to do it every day.
Sure.
Whiteboard and do awareness, acceptance, demand. And what that means is people have to know what you're doing. Don't ever think that people, well, they know what I'm doing. I've been doing it a long time, whether it's 6 months or 60 years. Because if you take that awareness factor out, so get up every day and go, okay, I've got to stay on the awareness campaign. Let people know I'm willing to work. These are my styles. This is what I've transitioned into. Always done this. That goes into one of the most important, if not, acceptance. So acceptance in the industry, to the decision makers, okay?
Yeah.
And then ultimately, that goes out into the masses.
Okay.
Man, I love that sound. I love that. What is that? So that's where the acceptance come in. Once those two keep going, then you get the demand.
Once people have a taste of it and they realize they like it, then they're going to start demanding it.
Yeah, then they start demanding it. And but it's always, you can't ever take one for granted. So, and the old saying, it's not what you know, but it's who you know, that's kind of right. But the saying, and I think it's in the Little Red Book they call it, it's not what you know, it's not who you know, but it's who knows of you. Who knows you and what you're doing. So that all ties in together.
I make this mistake all the time. I think, well, no, I already told this person that I'm composing and producing and doing my own thing as an artist, so I don't have to keep reminding them. Well, you know what? It's not so much reminding as it is the old proverb, out of sight, out of mind. So sometimes we just have to reach out. It's not like we're trying to say, hey, you need to hire me. But you know what? Just cultivate the relationships within your network and keep growing so that you get new ones. And you never know what'll happen. That's the awareness that Josh is talking about. People have to be aware of what you're doing. And then second, they need to accept it, right? I know it's hard for me sometimes to even accept that I'm doing this for myself. But guess what? If I don't accept it, how is anybody else going to accept it? So I got to believe in myself. Positive reinforcement. And then finally, hopefully that'll cultivate a demand for what we're doing. And it's so hard because music is an intangible, and you know what? The market is diluted. It's oversaturated. So it is hard to stand out. But I truly believe if we're true to ourselves, in the long run, it'll break through.
Subscribe to the Career Musician Podcast on iTunes.
All right, a little bit of putting the foot on the other shoe here. Number one, awareness. You said earlier also creating awareness on social media. However, there's a fine line between that and dilution of over-distribution. Social media is exemplary of that. It's all they do. I always say it's market saturation.
It's saturated.
So with number one, awareness and not diluting it, what's the fine line?
Well, it's first of all not uploading everything you have. It's kind of like talking in a conversation. You know, when we all do it, we talk way more than we listen. So if we listen you can get some very great elements. It's knowing your audience and knowing that space of going, okay, I feel like I've got something worthy to put out to the masses now. But if you're just putting out everything as a test, it just gets bogged down in this. I mean, you're competing. There is no more 3 networks and cable. Every day, this kid at Walmart, a month ago, the yodeler, all of a sudden, it's overnight. So, someone like yourself or that's in the profession, you've got great material. It's knowing when to put it out and say, okay, I think the market's ready. I've been very on purpose. And I think your audience will respect that.
All right, I know I'm guilty of putting everything up there in cyberspace.
Infinity, just you and me. Forever in love, I know we'll be.
Because I'm like, oh my God, I'm amazing. This is the one. This is the song that's going to break me, take me to the top. All right, let's get real, folks. We got to be realistic with ourselves, right? Knowing when to post something, knowing when to put it up, and knowing how much to put up. Don't just throw everything up there all the time, right? Being more selective with it. That's one thing that stands out for me in this segment. The other thing is, geez, I'm guilty right now. Talking too much. We tend to talk more than we listen. I'm in this new phase. I want to listen. I want to absorb and ingest knowledge and wisdom. So I always say, keep your eyes and ears wide open and your mouth shut. Look, I can be better at that, so I'm going to work on it. Also, taking the time to learn our audience. Each audience is different. Not everybody likes everything.
When you say we're creating awareness, again, the second part is you said you're creating the awareness, but as an artist, creator, whatever we want to call ourselves, we're capable of doing more than one thing. And you just said you just got to let people know that. A lot of times when you let people know you're transitioning to this, you're transitioning to that, the acceptance doesn't come. Well, I know you, Nomad, as a guitar player. You're a guitar player. That's what you're always going to be. Don't tell me you're a producer. Don't tell me you're a composer.
Right.
Definitely don't tell me you're an artist. I'll never accept that. Exactly. So then how do you go, how do you work through that pitfall?
It's a great question, and man, it's so interesting because, the people that I perceive to do great things, they're always transitioning. They're always doing different things, but you're exactly right. If you're branded as the guitar player with these 5 or 6 sounds and he's the guy, the minute you go on tour, your phone stops ringing because, first of all, perception.
Yes.
Right? The perception is he's good. He's good. I'll give it to somebody else. There's a young up and coming. So again, it goes back to the awareness and making sure your message is clear. Guys, don't perceive for me what I do. This is what I do. And you're constantly, without abusing that right to send information, letting them know I do these things.
You said the magic word, abusing that right. It's okay to let people know. You don't feel like it becomes bothersome?
Well, it's, again, how much if you're sending every day, all constantly out there, hey guys, Nomad's a guitar player. You know me for that. You know me. I'm on tour with Babyface. You also know this, but you may not. I produce. I'm doing this new project.
I see.
So I don't think that's abusing, especially when you've worked as hard as you. I always say for musicians, it takes about 8 hours a day since you're 5 to get in rooms like this.
That's right.
So it's a long time. So people want to hear. They want to hear from you. I'll use, and I think I can use the name Jonathan Cain. He's the keyboard player for Journey.
Absolutely.
We discussed this. Just because he wrote, the Don't Stop Believing, Faithfully, all those great songs, he had 10 just huge songs. He came into Nashville, and people would not accept that he could write country. So, it's just...
And he had 10 of the biggest songs in pop music.
Yeah, so I mean, it's, again, Tommy's sitting over there in the corner. It's people are going, well, Tommy is a producer. He's a bass player. They may not know. They know he can sing. We know that.
Right.
But they don't know to the extent. So is he abusing his right by telling the public at the right time, hey guys, I want to let you guys know I do sing. Chris Stapleton, he was known as a songwriter and a great instrumentalist, guitar player.
Yeah.
Did he abuse his right by going, you know what, I'm going to let people know what I really do now?
Right.
So I
think Brad Paisley has a similar story. He started as a session guitar player.
Yeah, Brad was a player. Yeah. I mean, he got signed young. Keith Urban, was as known as the guitar
player?
You're going to get locked in a
Gotcha.
box, but I think you can get locked in a few boxes.
I love that.
Yeah, I don't think you have to be locked in one.
It's like a badge of honor I wore my whole life, my whole career. I never just wanted to be known for doing one thing, partly because I freaking love everything when it comes to music. I love country, that chicken picking you hear right there. I love flamenco. I love classical. I love jazz. I love Latin. I love Cuban music. I love rock and roll. I love hip hop. I love R&B. I love funk. Oh my goodness. I love everything. Please don't lock me in a box. But guess what? Sometimes you gotta focus to get to where you wanna go.
Learning the secrets of the industry from the veterans who know it best. Be sure to subscribe to the Career Musician Podcast.
So as long as you trickle it out, it's not annoyance and bothersome. Just be smart about how you market yourself in that part to gain the acceptance in multiple areas.
Yeah, because there's probably somebody on the other end wanting to find, man, who do I know that can do this? That's what I found.
Now let's talk about the demand. Because again, market saturation
Sure.
is obvious.
Uh-huh.
And I believe the talent pool is too deep. The demand pool isn't even shallow. It doesn't even exist. It's almost like, seems like we're operating in this vacuum. For instance, as a composer, I want to compose for a TV show.
Right.
Well, you come to LA, you're here in LA. How many other hopeful composers are there? Let's just say, for argument's sake, there's 50,000 hopeful composers in LA. That could, I don't know.
Right.
Let's just say. How do you stand out? How does one stand out from 50,000?
As a composer, or
And again, you're transitioning. Now your talent and skill level is up the roof because you've been working on it for 20 some odd years.
Right.
But now you want to transition from a marketing standpoint, from an awareness and acceptance standpoint. How do you stand out to gain that demand?
Well, that's why you've got to be doing this as part of the ultimate hustle. Doing this in a creative, tasteful way, but doing it every day. So those who have the decision to draw the demand and can make the decision are going, you know what? I have been hearing Nomad, Tommy Sims, whoever composes. I've been hearing this. So it's that minute when they go, okay, I've got to get him over here. So
They have to arrive at their own.
Yeah, but if they don't, if you just assume, if you will, that they know I compose, I told them. Well, no, man, they're getting 50,000 other people telling them. So, but your talent level is going to set you apart in that anything you do at a great level, as we referred to earlier, the 10,000 hours it takes. Right. You guys have smoked that. So just because there's 50,000 others out there doing it, first of all, you have a resume in doing it. You have a history. You have the advantage of being on tour, seeing what the masses really are. You're getting to see the fans' reactions. And because we sit on Sunset Boulevard or we sit in our offices or a Music Row, we start getting so locked into what we perceive they think. So if you're out on tour, use that to the advantage.
You have to understand, people.
That's just two brothers needed a hug at some point in life, man, and said, I'll hug on you, you hug on me.
This is audio. I'm sitting in the room between Tommy Sims on my right and Josh Pegram on my left, and really, you can't have the right hand without the left hand because one informs the other.
And I found this is what I like to say. I think this is what we need. I want to be the guy in people's life that you can cry on my shoulder, but you can also high five with me. And I don't think we have enough of that. Wow. I think we got folks that will either high five with you or they love it when you're down. We're in a society that loves people when they're down for some reason. And I want to be on both sides. I want to be that call. And I think that's an important thing. It's got to be authentic. And we're in a land of, I call it synthetic vulnerability and authenticity. People know that's buzzwords, but it's really synthetic. So if you really are authentic and you love on people at their darkest moment and you have these gifts, then that's when all the things start falling in place.
Leave a light on. 'Cause I'm coming back, baby. Woo! So this is the song that Kyla Jade sang on The Voice. It's called Last Tear. Tommy Sims wrote it and produced it, and we all played on it for this session. And what Josh is talking about here, man, let me tell you, there was no synthetic vulnerability going on at that session. It's realness. He's talking about connecting with people. Social media and all of the cool new tech ways we have of branding and marketing is amazing. And I love it, and I want to use it to its fullest extent. But it does not replace flesh and blood, hanging out in person, talking, getting to know one another, sharing trials, tribulations, good times, bad times. Human connection. There's no substitute.
Where do you go now? Josh, what is your thing? Tell us about you now. If people want to discover what you do, and one thing you said to me earlier, you love connecting dots, and again, that's innately in you.
I do what you guys do. I take my own information every day. Just this, what we did today in Sunset Sound Studios.
Yeah.
I'm going to go and shake hands and see, if there's something. Let's just talk. Let's start at the human element. Let's start bouncing back and forth. And as you've seen, this was not planned. None of this that we're talking. And you just got to get out there. And the hardest thing, I think, for us as creative folks or entrepreneurs or just going, I want to do something, is getting outside of our head, and getting up and doing it.
The internal dialogue, I do believe, is our own worst enemy, right?
Yes.
And my wife, I thank God, she reminds me of it every day. She's like, look, stop talking yourself out of it. Just get up, make the decision, do it, get it done, and move on. Now, I'm on this new kick.
Yes.
My key word for 2018 is consistency.
I love it.
Now, as a young person growing up, we're consistent in our practice. As we call musicians, we call it in the woodshed. We're shedding.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
We're consistent for 10, 15, 20 years. Mm-hmm. Why is it that when it's time to step center stage and step into the spotlight, we lose all perception? We're like, wait a minute, I'm disoriented. I don't know what to do next. Consistency. Now I started reading The Compound Effect by Darryl Hardy, who's saying small incremental daily actions that become habits in whatever lane that you're trying to operate in will surmount into something, will accumulate.
Absolutely.
And amount to something big, and as long as it aligns with your core values. So he's saying what you said. Every day, look at your core values. Yes. Are you doing those compounded actions to perpetuate that?
I love it.
Right?
Yeah, yes. And you're right.
And that's basically what you're saying.
Yeah, he says it much better than I, but you just said it. It's overcoming the internal default inside ourselves that goes, you can't do this, you're not going to do it. All the voices we hear. That's why we have to get around the campfire and surround ourselves with other folks, because they may give you the pat on the back you need to make it through that day. So to line up and close on this, did I want to get on a plane yesterday and come out to L.A.? I love the city? No. I've got a wife and 2 children home.
Right.
But I knew 100% nothing would happen if I stayed back at home and didn't come to this. That's the biggest thing. So what I would leave on, sit around the campfire with folks, reach out, and it's okay not to be okay all the time. And I think we're scared of that. I think we live in a society that tells us we've got to be okay all the time, and that's the furthest thing from the truth. You will meet your best in the vulnerable moments, and that's when you can celebrate the high fives we talked about.
Wow.
Yeah.
Get out of our own heads. Stop that internal default mechanism that just naturally goes to the negative outcome. We got to reprogram our minds, because at the end of the day, we are in control. We just got to tell ourselves. This whole mindfulness movement really supports that concept. And that when you have that internal dialogue and you can't shut it off, think about your body. Think about all the organs inside your body, and think about how they're keeping you alive. That'll shut up that internal negative voice. Listen, gratefulness, being there for one another, committing, right? Having group interactions on a regular basis can help us overcome all of these things.
Make your voice heard. Leave a review and subscribe at the Career Musician Podcast.
Where can folks find you?
Man, unfortunately, I'm not big on the social media thing. I'm on LinkedIn.
Okay.
I'm on LinkedIn, yeah. And
Josh Pegram.
Josh Pegram on LinkedIn. You can find me there.
And
other than that, you go through Nomad to get my number. Yeah. So
that's all cool. And I Connect the Dots is your company on LinkedIn. Basically?
Yeah. That's what I've been doing for I think the last decade. I looked at it and I said, wow, I've been doing this for a minute now. So, but again, started knocking on doors and it was easier. But now married with 2 children, and this has been awesome. This is fun watching James the engineer come in.
That's right, and he's going to be next.
Yeah, he's a big part of this, and watching his chill bump factor and watching his enthusiasm. Right. It's beautiful to see this stuff, man.
Incredible.
And so that's the fun part. Why we ultimately got in this for the chill bumps. So just keep doing what you do.
Man, those are the best words of encouragement. Keep doing what you do. Do what you do. I'll do what I do. Let him and her and they do what they do. And together, we can all have our own little space. If you think about music as a whole, there's so many different artists and groups and bands that have influenced us over the years. Think about everything that you listen to in your daily playlists. And for back in the day, if you had a vinyl collection or a cassette collection, man, there's so much. There's so many different varieties of music. We can all do this together and find our niche. So let's just keep doing what we do. I love that, Josh. Thank you. Let's see what he has to say about social media.
I just think, as Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and all these great things, but man, it takes us and puts us in our most happiest of times that are synthetic again, I think, for most, not all. But I would like to put Real Book up, because I think that's what needs to be seen, is the real moments of life. And then we can go, okay, I'm doing okay. I'm not doing that bad. So, but for some reason, we're captured in this illusion that we got to take our 5 minutes of perfect. That's usually caused a fight happens getting that picture, always. So it's just Facebook and Instagram. I love you guys. I don't use your services and Snapchat, but let's do Real Book. Let's put a conversation out there. I'm not doing great today. Yeah, I'm in LA. I'm a musician and I'm on tour and it looks like I'm rocking. But the soul's not great today. Or it is great today. It's okay to share that good stuff.
It's okay to share
both sides. Yeah, but for some reason we set up a society that says you can only share the good stuff or you will be judged.
And then you said it's putting unnecessary pressure on ourselves.
It's unnecessary pressure on ourselves, that voice that we talked about earlier, and then our wives or our spouses or our friends or kids, then they put pressure on themselves, and that's the sad part. So we're already hard enough on ourselves. I don't need another external voice.
How's this for irony? Be sure to follow The Career Musician on Instagram and Facebook. Like, subscribe, follow, leave a review, please. But seriously, we need each other. That's how we help propel one another into the future. And may those futures be bright. Once again, I had a true pleasure bringing you this episode. I distinctly remember conducting the interview in the lounge over at Sunset Sound. And initially I was a little apprehensive to ask Josh, hey man, I really love, our connection. I love all the things we're talking about. Would you mind being a guest on my podcast? And you know what? That's how it usually happens. I love the impromptu nature of podcasting in general. And just a reminder to let us know that's what life is all about. Sharing, learning, right? Wisdom, knowledge, experience. That's what brings us all together. And it brings us through life. And what Josh is saying, I think, you're not the only one. If you're going through something, share it with somebody. We can almost guarantee you someone's going to be able to identify and help lift you up. Or maybe you just commiserate, but that's good too. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. Once again, my name is Nomad, the career musician, and seriously, please leave a review on iTunes. That'll help us get higher ratings. Please subscribe on iTunes, and then, of course, listen on all your other platforms that you prefer. That's it for this episode. Stay tuned for more of The Career Musician. Nomad signing off.
That's a wrap for today. Be sure to leave a review and subscribe to the Career Musician Podcast.
I'm just a nomad, nowhere man, writing the songs in this one-man band. A nomad, yeah, I'm a nomad. So hush now, darling, you'll be fine. I'll be back this way sometime. Until then, baby, don't you cry.